Okay. This is Willie Jones, and you've tuned in to another edition of Women for Progress Radio. And this, of course, is the Working Woman Report, which is every Wednesday from 12 to 1. And I just want to take this opportunity. I think we have a few more Wednesdays in the year that we're going to continue this dialogue. But I want to it's just thank you all because it's Thanksgiving week, and I say this all the time is this programming, everything we do at Women for Progress is for our community and for you. And so thank you so much for uplifting the Women for Progress Radio Network and Women for Progress Media. We want you to continue to do that though by liking and sharing our podcast, all of our amazing podcasts. And you can go to womenforprogressradio.com and you can see many of our other schedules there that you can put in your calendars and make sure that you tune in. We have some phenomenal new shows that have come online or going to be coming online. Shout out to Dr. Fortune, Dr. Melanie Fortune. I'm telling you, if you want some good news, some good information, and great conversation, tune in to see Dr. Melanie Fortune's show, which is on, I don't want to get that wrong, but she's on womenforprogressradio.com, and you can go and see what day of the a month, and she comes on twice a month. So go to our radio website and make sure you tune in to her. And Dr. Gillian, who, my goodness, he does Man Cave. He's our only well, he's not our only male podcast because now we have legal speaking with Judge Jimmy King, who is also amazing. Thank you so much, Judge, for always coming in on every other Monday and really keeping us tuned in to all of the legal issues that we want to impact our community. So thank you so much. But thank you for tuning in. I want to remind you that not only we're live here on Facebook at Women for Progress, but you can get us on YouTube, you can get us on Instagram. You can, of course, some people say, hey, I don't do social media. You can go to our radio page because every time we go live here, we also go live on our radio page. So at womenforprogressradio.com, you can go directly there each time that we go live, and it's already there and broadcast for you. And of course, anywhere you get your podcast, we're also available there too. So there's plenty of opportunity for you to tune into these conversations. And thank you for so much for supporting the work of Women for Progress Media. Now, of course, the Working Woman Report, our podcast is to highlight the work of women throughout the state of Mississippi and now post COVID beyond borders because with all of this network access, we don't have to just rely on the amazing women that are here in Mississippi. But our goal is to uplift that work of women so voters, our constituency, our communities, that and even our leaders understand the impact of that work to our communities, to families, and how important it is. So thank you for tuning in for us today. I want to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I want you to have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful holiday. And we'll talk a little bit later in the program to give you a little tips to survive the Thanksgiving holiday. And but I want to get started in our conversation because it'll whiz by as usual. And I'm so excited today to have our guest, attorney Kamesha Mumford, who is leading in the runoff election for Mississippi Senate District 26. So join us today. Sit down, have a cup of coffee, get a glass of tea, because she's not only running for Mississippi Senate, but also she's a phenomenal leader here in the city of Jackson and state of Mississippi. So we're going to talk to her today. Welcome back to the program, Kamesha, because this is not your first rodeo with us, right?
Time. I was just sitting here thinking about my first appearance on the Working Woman Report. I think
Yeah.
it's been about 8 years though.
Yeah.
Since
Yeah.
I've been here.
But a little shorter time because you also was a long time host of Legally Speaking.
That's right.
You're part of that team there and did a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
What was that experience like for you being part of that? And even, when we think about Legally Speaking, the whole mission and of that particular programming for Women for Progress Radio.
Oh yeah, Legally Speaking was a great experience for me. Most times when I am in a venue where we are talking about legal issues, I don't care who my guest has been, we always get to heirs property and estate planning because that's what most of the folks in our community have come to me for. But being able to have other attorneys come on to Legally Speaking with me and talk about their areas of practice, for us to just really talk about issues that are affecting our community was great. The interaction, though, too, between the community members who would watch and tune in was also wonderful, because if they didn't feel comfortable asking a question on the, especially when we were live on Facebook more, they would call us after or reach out to my guests after, just for more insight on their issue. So that was a wonderful experience for me.
Yeah, it was extremely informative too, because every time you start talking about the work you have, everybody's like, "Oh, I got a question, I got a question." We're all dealing with that in some way, and I don't want us to get into that type of. We maybe touch on it later, because we'll get long on just that. I think we all have these issues. I just drove down to South Mississippi, where I have my mom's home now, and so anyway, that, like I said, those issues when it comes to property and heirs property and all those kind of things, especially for the African American community, are so important. But I want to get right into our conversation. You are also, just like many, and I do want to give full disclosure also, that Kamesha Mumford is a member of Women for Progress, a longtime member, and we appreciate her service to this organization. So, and we have a lot of women of what I call legal eagles within this organization, and you are one of them. So, what was the catalyst for your career in law? Were you walking around with with a gavel as 2 year old said, "Hey, I want to be an attorney"? What drove you to this particular career?
I used to tell this story about me being 5 years old in kindergarten and not being good at coloring. And my mom got on to me about it because I wouldn't color in the lines. And she said, "Listen, you have got to color in the lines." And I said, "Mama, lawyers don't color, so this isn't really important." And I would always say, I've thought or wanted to be an attorney since 5. As I've gotten older and then had my own children, I realized that it was my parents' idea. They saw something in me, and they just always encouraged Kamesha, the lawyer. So as much as I think it was my idea, it really was theirs, and they put me in position, even as a 5-year-old, to have these experiences that led me to the law. I never strayed away from wanting to be an attorney through high school, through college. And my mom says that she thought it was a good career for me because I always wanted to help people. She said no matter what she was doing, no matter what was happening in our church, we were a family that spent most of our time at church. We were either at home or at church. And she said she just watched how, even with the elderly people at church or even the young people, I was always trying to find solutions to help people. And so my parents just encouraged that. When I was 15, I wanted to work. Everybody's getting that first job. And I went to my dad and said, I want to have a job. And he said, "Great. I'm going to set up an interview for you." And that interview was at Justice Court. I mean, they were always doing things to, kind of foster that fire in me for the law, which I already had, but they wanted to put me in position to really see the field that I wanted to enter, and then be successful at it. Things like when I was 8 years old, I was in 4-H, and 4-H would have these oratorical competitions at Colin. And I was in it every year from 8 to 16. And they would just find ways. They didn't have, a lot of money, but they used every resource that they had to make sure I was able to follow my dreams. And an attorney was one of those. And I just stuck with it. I tell kids now all the time, and I've been speaking to a lot of young people for many years, if your parents see something in you, don't fight it. Go with it, because they want what's best for you. And as children, children think that they know better sometimes. But I'm just so grateful and thankful for my parents, just for the support that they have given me, all of my 43 years. So,
well, we talked about your work around the heirs property, but and since you've been in law, what have been some of your successes? How have you used the law for community service? And you talked, of course, you've been uplifting and helping people, but talk a little bit about some of those experiences.
So, I have been in the area of property law. Now, when I started law school, I thought I was going to be a criminal defense lawyer. That's kind of where I thought I'd work. And then second year, I took a property course, fell in love with property. My grandfather, who's 87 years old now and still driving and able to do whatever he wanted to do, was always into real estate.
Mm.
And so I fell in love with property law. I graduated from law school in 2007. The housing bubble had burst at that time. It wasn't really a good time to be, a closing attorney, which was my ultimate goal. And so I went to work for Arthur Johnson in the Madison County Chancery Clerk's office. The Chancery Clerk's office is the office where the records are kept, real estate records are kept. Worked there for 4 years, learned how to search title, which is really important for a real estate attorney. Worked in compliance for him. And then I went from there and worked for a real estate investment firm, a national firm, for about 8 years as in-house counsel, which led to, once my daughter was born, Gia, Gerald and I became law partners, Mumford and Mumford, and then Mumford Title was born sometime after that. Once I went out into private practice with Gerald, I saw the need in our community for estate planning work. And so what I started to do was just reach out to churches, civic groups. Will you allow me to come in and do this free seminar? We'll talk about estate planning. When I started, I would even offer to do simple wills for people on site. And so I would bring my little printer and my laptop, and we would talk about what they had and draw up their wills right there. Right. They grew so big, I had to stop doing that because I couldn't get them all done within the allocated time, especially for the church groups, because normally it would be a lunchtime meeting, on a Tuesday from 12 to 1, and we were running into issues with me being able to complete them all. And that's when I came up with the will worksheet. So in Mumford and Mumford, we have the special will worksheet. You take it with you, kind of write down what you have, who you want to leave it to. It really makes people think about their assets. And we have real in-depth conversations about your beneficiaries, your heirs, because I have this saying, when you come to me for estate planning, you have to know your folks. If you have a child that's not a good money manager, let's talk about ways to make sure that you can still help them, but also make sure they don't waste what you've worked so hard for. And so I started doing those, and now, I've done them for most of the Greek organizations, several churches. They normally, I go over time every time because of the questions. I've shortened my presentation many times, but there's so much interest in the area. Right. I enjoy doing it so much because we are thirsty for the information. Right. People want to know how. I think they feel better when they come to a seminar because they can hear questions from others, the things that maybe they haven't thought about. And then they can take it back to their family members, especially when we start talking about heirs property. Even in my own family, I had an aunt who recently passed away, but she never wanted the land out of her mom's name. Well, now we are in a conundrum because most of us are first, second cousins that are now owners. Who's going to pay the taxes? And so everybody's looking at me like, well, this is what you do. And it's like, it's easier for me to do it for other families. And then my own families, but we need to avoid that situation. But I come into it with the understanding of how difficult it was for Black folks to even own property. And so I know that's where let's never take it out of great grandma's name because we couldn't keep it even if we acquired it. You think it's
somehow continuing the legacy.
Yeah, and then the fear that if you take it out of this name, it will be taken because, historically, we've seen Black land laws before now, the heir property issues with people just blatantly stealing it. And so I get that that's where those feelings came from. If I leave it in grandma's name, we will always have it. What we have though now is we have all this land that we can't do anything with it because of the title issues. And I talked to one family. I said, do you know they had some land that had a very high value? It was so tied up. I said, y'all could probably establish scholarships for, every great grandchild of this person if you could leverage this land. And they thought about it and we did it, and they still have a good deal of the land, but they are actually using it. They cut timber on it because timber companies won't come and cut it anymore. They used to in the past, but now they're worried about liability if they pay somebody and there are 25 other co-tenants. And so when we talk about those issues and seeing that family, they have created a family neighborhood. They have covenants. You have to be an heir to build there. And it is beautiful. And they're all family. I can't imagine what
and you transform the lives of so many people, by doing that. And I think one of the things when I hear you talk about all the different diverse groups that you have presented to and
Yeah.
shared to, is that's giving you an opportunity to work with a lot of diverse groups of people across the community and across Mississippi.
Oh yeah.
And I think when it comes to leadership and service, that diversity, especially in Mississippi, is important.
Mhm.
So engaging with those individuals, and what have
Yeah.
you learned about that community and working with people, especially when it comes to conflict,
Oh,
right?
oh, well, that's the other thing with this, where I've worked with families all across the state. But the biggest thing is that I've appeared in just about every chancery court in this state, from North Mississippi to Harrison County, the coast. And so I've had to appear before different judges. Some judges look like me, some didn't, some
Mm-hmm.
were male, some were female. I had to learn the approach, especially we're
Right.
in Chancery Court. It's a court of equity. There are
Right.
lots of decisions that are made at the judge's discretion.
Right.
And so I really had to learn how to be effective no matter who I was standing before, which has helped me be able to navigate those issues so much. Especially, I've got a judge here, I've got two or three family members that are agreeing that they want to make
Right.
sure that these title issues are cured, and I may have two or three over here that's saying they want to leave it in grandma's name.
Right.
And so not only dealing with clients, dealing with the court, and being able to come to a resolution that everyone can feel proud of at the end, even if it didn't happen exactly like they thought it would. Especially dealing with families. I was in a situation where there were three siblings. I represented two. There was one that did not want to have the partition action done, even though all it was going to do was give everyone their share of the property,
Right.
and then they could decide to put it in a trust. I had a really good chancellor that pulled us all in the office. I had explained everything to her according to the statute. The chancellor brought us all in, brought the other sister in, and basically said the same things that I had said to the
Mm-hmm.
family. And that lady, who was not my client at the time I represented the siblings, she just appreciated my honesty so much, because when the judge came in and basically said the same
Yeah.
things that I said, she has been a client of mine ever since for different matters because of the trust that was built. And that's something that has made campaigning easier for me,
Mm-hmm.
because I've done so much work in this community, in that area, even the free stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
think people know me enough to trust,
Right.
to trust me, my judgment, and also to just know what kind of person I am, just because I've been doing this work for so long.
And that leads into a very good, very good question. You're leading in the runoff going into Mississippi Senate for Mississippi Senate District 2026,
Mhm.
and you've talked about working with people. You've talked about conflict management. You've talked about working across the line, across the table with a diverse group of people,
Mhm.
even the folks that are in leadership that are making the laws and administering the policies and etc. How, in addition to this work that you've been doing around the property, how has your career, your experiences set you up for this particular position in the Senate?
My goodness, when I look back at everything that I've done over the course of my career, I know that my steps were ordered. Before I entered law school, I graduated from college in 3 years. It left a little bit of a gap between law school actually starting, and I've always been a hard worker. I've always wanted to have a job,
Mm-hmm.
to be doing something
Right.
productive. And so I went back to my dad again. I was like, I need to do something during this interim period. So when in this interview, I ended up working for the Madison County Board of Supervisors for a period of time, which is where I met Arthur Johnston, who hired me after law school. Well, they were spreading all of these orders over their minutes, ordinances, essentially, that would affect the things you could do or could not do in the county. None of it had been codified.
Mm.
And so I ended up, over that period of time, creating the first code of ordinances
Mm.
for Madison County. I had to go through every Board of Supervisor minute book, read through all the minutes, find something that should be an ordinance, pull it out, make the code. It was a it was an extremely timely process,
Yeah.
but I loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
That's where I started, and
Yeah.
then I moved into working in compliance. It's like I've always kind of, the Lord was just setting me up, I
Yeah.
think, for this moment, to where, I'm a judge. I've sat on the bench, so I'm not only an attorney where I am there to present the law to the court, analyzing it for my client, but as a judge, I'm applying the law every week, and I see how little changes in our laws can make such a big difference in the
Mm.
lives of so many people. And so I think just And then my community commitment. I think a good lawmaker isn't someone that just has the professional experience, but really does have the connection to the people that you wish to
Right.
serve. And I have been so active and connected and committed to this community for so long, to where, this is something that I know I'm called to do.
Mm. Well, that's great, and I think that's what the voters saw when they went to the polls the first time. And I want to say again, we got to get back on December
Mm-hmm.
2nd and
That's
remind
right.
our audience about that. So I want to talk a little bit about some issues that impact our community that's important. And I want to say to our audience also, when we go to the polls and vote for these positions, even though, and as I stated at the end, District 26, you
Mm-hmm.
are representing District 26, but you're actually representing Mississippi,
That's right.
because every move that you make in the Senate for District 26 impacts
Affects.
us. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not in District 26, but when I remember when Senator Horn had this position, we called on him, that we talked about workforce development. We called
Mm-hmm.
on him about workforce development. We talked to, about, we called him just for advice about what was going on in the Senate. I remember he hosted a workshop where he talked about what happens with the bill, and all
Mm-hmm.
those particular things, and really helping continue to educate us as voters.
Yeah.
So the issues that are important to Mississippi, I want to talk a little bit about what are some of the top things in your once you win and you're in this particular position. What are some of the top issues that you want to focus on within your first year?
Well, I'll start with education because there's been so much talk about this private to public school
Hmm.
transfer of dollars. I've said time and time again, I would never ever support any bill that took our public school dollars away from our public school system and sent those funds to private schools. I also have said that the worst kept secret in Jackson is that my children attend a private school.
Hmm.
You know, my journey to motherhood wasn't the typical journey.
Right.
And so there had to be some different decisions made for my family. And I have said time and time again, I wouldn't be a good senator if I didn't take care of the folks in my house
Right.
to the best of my
Hmm.
ability. And so those decisions had to be made. But two things can be true at the same time. I'm a
Hmm.
strong proponent for public schools. I'm a proud
Hmm.
product of public schools. My children have actually attended both.
Hmm.
I've been president or secretary of our PTO in public schools. And so I'm always going to support that system. And I don't think sending money away from the system is beneficial for the system as a whole. We have to find ways to strengthen it by actually fully funding our education system, by paying our teachers a competitive wage. And then I'd like to see equitable funding across districts. Every school doesn't need the same things.
Right.
I think we have to make sure our schools are getting what they need based on that school, and especially our rural schools and our schools in underserved areas, because they have different needs.
Right.
And an approach to make sure that every child in Mississippi has a quality education is really looking at each district and deciding how they are best served.
Hmm.
And so I know education is going to be on the agenda. My position is always to support that public school system. And if parents make the decision to send their children to a private school, then they just pay for it.
Right.
But we don't take that money away from our public schools. I think what's more likely to be on the agenda is the public to public transfer.
Right.
And even that, I think, will weaken some districts. And so I think we have to, I can't support that either. Let's make every school district
Yeah.
strong.
Why pile up? I mean, because the other thing is, if you are a principal at a particular school, and you can't accept everybody from
That's
every other
right.
place. So, and that's always, and I don't even want to I get passionate about
Yeah.
that too, because I'm like, why do my kid who may live in South Jackson, I got to be bused or all the way up to North Jackson? Why can't the school right across, whatever's working good
Mhm.
in North Jackson, let's, if they got a plan, they got a system that's
Yep.
working, let's duplicate that in South
And a
Jackson
lot of that
schools.
can happen with just equitable funding.
Yeah.
Not equal. There's a
Yeah.
difference.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And if we really look at that approach, especially for our rural school districts, they need more.
Hmm.
They need different. and not just more money going into the school district, but let's think about our teachers. What if we provided some housing assistance, whether that was down payment assistance, if the teachers would live in the district themselves?
Right.
You know, grants to pay off their student loans if they would stay here and teach for a certain period of time.
Mhm.
Those are all things that could help every school district. And then again, I mean, it's really important that the funding be equitable,
Yeah.
because some districts that are overperforming could probably, we could
Right.
send some funds to some schools that need more help. We can also encourage some teachers um, to work in a rural area if they were going to receive down payment assistance or a grant to pay off their student loans. Those are ways where we push every school district in Mississippi to work to the best of its ability, and that gives every child the education that they deserve.
And that empowers good teachers too.
Mhm.
And that's what you want. You want teachers to feel like they're connected. Because
Yeah.
if I receive down payment assistance and now I'm a homeowner, I'm more excited when I hit that building.
That's right.
You know, great opportunity.
And communities power schools.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
Yeah.
And so if we have this community approach to
Mhm.
where these are our students, this is our school, we're receiving the support that we need, let's all rally around our school.
Yeah.
Then, you know, every district is thriving
Right.
at that point in time.
You talked about also the challenges of motherhood too, and you're a mother of, is it three
Two.
kids, two kids now,
Mhm.
and I know you've had challenges too in your motherhood journey,
Yeah.
and right now when we're talking about mothers who are dying in childbirth, I mean, is this not 2025?
2025.
Oh my
It's
goodness, you know what I'm
unbelievable.
saying? It's
Mhm.
unbelievable of what the numbers are, and especially in Mississippi.
Mhm.
Talk about some of the health issues that you would champion to support better health care for women.
Greater access
Mhm.
is necessary. You know, when we think about our maternal fetal health crisis, and this is something I thought about this morning, almost 10 years to the date. Well, we're getting close to the 10-year mark. I had a stillborn, Savannah Ann Mumford, born still. No reason has been provided to us, and we had every test we could to figure out why it happened. I was 27 weeks pregnant, went to felt like something was off, went and got checked, she was gone.
Mm.
um that experience changed me in so many ways. But it's almost been 10 years since that happened, and to see the number of stillbirths, of mothers dying, and even of babies dying before their first birthday, it's heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when most of those mothers and babies are African American.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have enough access to quality health care. Folks that live in the rural areas are not getting the care that they need or the support that they need. And I understand that we are making strides, but this is an emergency. It needs immediate action. And we have to be creative. Just like we can pay or provide grants, down payment assistance for our teachers, let's do that for our doctors if they are willing to live and work in these rural areas. Because not only are we giving greater access to quality health care, but they are actually invested in their community. They are seeing their patients out in general and having more connectedness. When I did have Gia, because the Lord is so good, so I went through that experience with Savannah, and a year from that date, almost exactly, I found out I was pregnant with Gia.
Wow.
But when I was going in for my C-section, because we knew we were going to have a C-section with Gia just because of all the problems I'd had, I was so afraid that something was going to happen to me. Because, you know, every bad thing that could happen in childbirth had happened to me, except for me passing away.
Right.
And so I remember the night before my C-section telling Gerald, like, I historically have low blood pressure. So if it looks normal, it may still be high for me. Pay attention, you know, just all these things that I'm telling him because I knew how many Black women were passing away in childbirth. That's sad.
Yeah.
Mainly though, you know, it's because we are not heard as much as others, you know, in that when we're going through childbirth or at all, you know, in general. And so I remember like giving him these lists of things to look for just in case I was not, you know, at myself, not feeling with whatever. I was like, watch out for, and he was looking at me like, why?
Yeah, like we have these doctors here. Why are you concerned about these issues?
And I remember saying, you need to advocate in a hospital room just like you do in a courtroom. You know, just be vigilant.
Mhm.
You know, don't get all excited because the baby's here
Yeah.
and stop checking me and her just in case I'm just, you know, I'm not all the way there.
And most women don't have those advocates, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. And some don't even know that they need to tell the people that are there with them to watch out for these things.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I was cognizant of, but for most people, they just have so much trust
Mhm.
in their doctors and that sort of thing, where they may not tell a mom or a husband or a sister, hey, look out for these things. Or to think about, I mean, my blood pressure is always on the low end. So
Right.
I say if it's normal, that could still be high for me. So just make sure you're paying attention to those things. But just having the education around that access is important. And then quality health care, you know, just
Mm.
making sure. And we do that, I think, when we provide some tuition assistance, some down payment assistance for housing, we can keep our best and brightest here. We have
Yeah.
brain drain here
Yeah.
in every area. But we need to give some incentives to
Right.
keep our folks here at home.
Yeah. Healthcare is so very, very important.
Yeah.
And we're still challenged with affordable healthcare.
Yes.
I mean, you know, insurance is still a challenge for many. I still talk to women every single week. And you know, when I'm talking and doing career assessments, and my next question is, I'm talking to them about benefits. Do you have insurance? And most times the answer is no, because they're either in between. They can only get coverage if they're tied to an employer. But if you're unemployed, what do you do in the meantime? You know, you
Yeah.
have that break in there,
Mhm.
and then every time you start a new job, then
Got
you
waiting
start new
period.
benefits. Then there's a waiting period. Then
Yeah.
there's a deductible. So there's many challenges. And I think the most significant thing, I was just listening to a cardiologist talk about heart disease, which still is the number one killer of African American women. I'm going to be repeating that. You are going to hear that a lot, because I was reminded the other day about the urgency of that. But you know, in these periods where a lot of women are getting this break in insurance, what also is that's a break into continual care. So if they had a primary doctor with ABC insurance company, and now they move to a new job, and now that doctor doesn't take
Got it.
ABC
Yeah.
insurance, that continuity is so important when it comes to women's health.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
I transferred to a new clinic. It was the same clinic, but it was a new location. And I remember going and following up and doing my annual exam. And when I was used to, up to that point, when I roll in, they got Willie Jones records, and so I'm getting because of my blood pressure issues, my family history. I'm getting an EKG, I'm getting a urine analysis, I'm getting blood work. I'm just getting all these tests done that I didn't even have to ask for. And then when I got to this clinic, you know, it was like I didn't even think about it until, because I wasn't having any symptoms or any problems. They only did blood work. So I got home. I said, I don't think they did my annual exam.
Yeah.
So I hit the nurse back and said, "What's going on? I was supposed to have an." She said, "Well, insurances have changed now, and unless there's something going on with you, the insurance company only going to allow us to do certain things unless you're ailing with something." I panicked right away. I said, "Oh no, something's wrong with this." And what about all of the other women who didn't ask that question,
That's
right?
right.
Who didn't ask the same question that I had. So I said to her, "You need to tell me the dialogue that I need to have with you to trigger these other tests." But those, when we talk about education, that continuity and breaking in insurance is so important. So talk to us about your approach. We're still challenged now with Medicaid expansion, even the cost of insurance. Talk to us about how you might be willing or plan to use this position to address those issues.
Community health centers. You know, they are really vital and important with all of these Medicaid concerns, funding issues. We, as a state, I think we invest more in our community health centers so that we can make sure our folks are still being seen, and invest in, expand, really empower them to take care of our community members.
I love that idea.
You know,
Yeah.
for most African Americans, that's where we were first seen and heard, as patients. I think with all the changes, there is so much uncertainty. Community health centers are a safe bet for us in this critical time, because our goal is to make sure that people get the care that they need. And I think making the investment there can at least get us through these turbulent times.
Mm-hmm.
Education is really important. Our folks knowing, look, I had an EKG last year. They didn't give
Mm-hmm.
me one this year. Pap smears, especially because you're
Mm.
not getting those every year.
Right.
And I remember going for my annual some time ago, and they said, "Oh, you don't get one." I was like, "I don't. What do you mean I don't get
Mm-hmm.
one? Like
Yeah.
this is a
Yeah.
yearly thing." And even with me, because of my fertility issues, I needed to start having mammograms early. There
Right.
was such a big fight with the
Yeah.
insurance company to cover me as a 36-year-old with
Mm-hmm.
a mammogram. But if the science says
Yes.
she needs to have them now
Mm-hmm.
because she's at a higher risk,
Mm-hmm.
then why are we fighting about
Yeah.
it? You know what I
And
mean?
that comes that continuity, because
Mm-hmm.
if your doctor knows that you have these other histories of things, he can also
Mm-hmm.
he or she can advocate for you
Yep.
with that insurance company. Say this woman has a history. Her mother had this issue. Her
Yep. She
grandmother had
needs
this
it.
issue. She needs it. She had
Mm-hmm.
this experience, because sometimes a no is not really a
It's
no.
not really
You,
a no.
even with the insurance
Yeah.
company, their first gut reaction is to say no
No.
to
Yeah.
everything.
Right.
You know, and
Yeah.
so you have to have, and I love the idea of having community centers, because health centers, because hopefully what's the history of those have been is those doctors are more engaged in the community.
Mm-hmm.
They understand the population that they
Right.
serve, and we, like you said, we are used to, our community specifically are used to feeling comfortable in those types of
Mm-hmm.
environments.
And it really can help us too, not only on the physical health, but
Mm-hmm.
even on the mental health side, which we are
Yeah.
seeing so many issues there. We haven't talked about public safety very much, but that's a part. Mental health course are part of my public safety platform. I hate that it has to be a part of the public safety
Mm-hmm.
platform. It should be a part of just a
Yeah.
general health care, but that's where we're seeing so many issues in our community, or at least for me on the bench every week. I have some defendant that really has had a mental health break,
Mm-hmm.
but has also committed a crime.
Mm.
And so now I have a defendant that may or may not, or likely does not have the capacity to understand what's even going on right now, who
Mm-hmm.
needs some treatment. I have a family. Oftentimes I'll have a victim. And so we have to figure out how to get ahead of this, taking care of the whole person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been the quality of life candidate, I think, since I started this, just thinking about what can I do to make sure that not only the citizens of Senate District 26, but that we all have a better quality of life. We all want the same things. You know, I know we are in a season of divisive politics,
Mm.
but really and truly, when you look at the whole person, we all want the same things: good schools, safe communities,
Mm-hmm.
good roads and bridges, economic development, workforce development.
And those are not Democratic or
They are
Republican
not
issues. Those are
people
human
issues.
issues.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
And if we really think about people in terms of caring about our neighbor, we have gotten so far away from this village approach. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and really thinking about taking care of your neighbors. I think if we get back to that, we can solve a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as it's me against them, you know, us against them, it's really hard to move forward and really create positive change. And so, what I did before we even got into the season is really think about this district. I know it so well, but think about things that made life easier for everybody that lived in the district, whether you lived in Jackson or Edwards, you know, and that's kind of how I approached it.
So you've been on the trail for a while. You know, like you said, you lived in the district, so you understand from certain perspectives about what's going on, what some of the needs are. What are the voters saying that are important to them in District 26?
Public safety has always
Mm-hmm.
been kind of at the top of every voter's list of concerns, followed by roads and bridges.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a big one. Everyone's concerned about infrastructure,
Yeah.
and then education and PERS will probably fall right after that. But you want to feel safe in your neighborhood and
Mm-hmm.
your community. I've said over these last several months, it's just not about responding to crime. And I support
Mm-hmm.
law enforcement. I'm so thankful for the police officers that work in my court in that jurisdiction, and then officers all over our state who dedicate their time, risk their lives to keep us all safe. But we can't just think about it in the response to the
Mm-hmm.
crime. Mental health courts, better lighting in our neighborhoods, rebates for Ring doorbell cameras. Most people have those.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can offer rebates for neighborhood members who purchase those cameras, and then would allow access to law enforcement officers when things happen, we are
Mhm.
changing the game right there.
Mhm.
Because criminals now, if they're thinking everybody has one, even if they don't see it, there may be a camera, someone that will slow people down. The other thing is after school programs for our students. Most families have two parents that are working, right? Everyone's working. There's not a stay at home person.
Mhm.
So we have kids getting out of school. Where do they go? Who's watching them? Who's taking care of them? Can they be influenced by the wrong crowd? Well, if we have some after school programs where they can have positive experiences, we're really looking at preventing crimes from ever happening when we do those things. I think we also go back to our neighborhood watch program. That was such a big thing when I was growing up.
Mm.
Neighbors looking out for neighbors,
Mm.
you letting your neighbor know if you're going to be out of
Mm.
town, or even if your kid is coming home from school and you won't be there until
Mhm.
later. Just that community approach. I don't know if it was COVID or what happened
Yeah.
that really started the
Society
disconnect.
changed, and we became disconnected from ourselves. It's like, I'm going to take care of mine, you take care of yours.
Mhm.
So our society changed. So when we look at issues like neighborhood watch, that requires unity. That requires about me thinking about you in a way that says that I value you.
Mhm.
You are part of my community,
Yeah.
that human community.
Mhm.
So we got to also get back to making sure that we put those society's norms back in place,
Yeah.
that it becomes who we are again.
That's
I
right.
think that's what you're talking about.
Mhm.
It's an interesting that safety is now the number one thing, that or top thing that communities or because if you don't feel safe in your community, my goodness, I'm a widower,
Mhm.
so I mean that's you know gosh, I got 1,000 other things I could be thinking about
Mhm.
besides, if I'm going to pull up to my house, is if my house is safe.
Yeah.
So we got to get away from that so we can spend time concentrating on so many other major
Other things.
projects,
Mhm.
priorities of where we are. Now, I'm a workforce developer, so I got to
Mhm.
talk about that
Yeah.
because I think workforce development now is not the solution to everything, but it plays. It's like the spice in the
The
soup.
catalyst. Yeah.
It's so good workforce development.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not talking about job to have a job.
Right.
When I look at what it takes for a family to really survive, we have to really make sure when we talk about workforce development, we talking about what workforce development needs to look like for our communities in
That's
our
right.
state.
Mhm.
So, talk a little bit about how you view workforce development. What do you think the legislator can do to make sure that resources, opportunities, all of that stuff is in place for all of our communities in Mississippi?
Well, through my judgeship, I have also become a workforce developer,
Yeah.
and it's such a funny thing, or a strange thing. I will have young people come before me, traffic offenses. There are so many young people that will go. Parents will buy them a car and they don't have a license.
Mhm.
They'll end up $2,000 in citations, no
Mhm.
job, and then they say, Judge, I need you to help me because
Mhm.
I owe the city $2,500
Yeah.
in fines. My first question: what do you do every day? I'm trying to figure it out. College wasn't for me. And so we go through this whole process while I'm on the bench. My court goes longer than I'd like it to sometimes, but I really care about the person that's standing in front of me. And so I'll say, what do you like to do? And I get all sorts of answers. I like to cut hair or braid hair. I like to work with my hands. I like to drive. And I will tell you, I said, okay. Or some people will say they don't have a high school diploma either, even. And so at that point, I'm ordering you. You need help with this fine? You have to give me something.
Right.
And so if it's I will help you with this fine, you need to go get your GED. You
Right.
have this much time to do it, bring it back here, and then we can talk about the fine. Go to welding school, go to CDL. I mean, I'm sending them to barber school, and I let them tell me what they like to do, and I try to find a place to send them because I'm thinking about a positive outcome for this young person so that this driving without a license traffic citation doesn't turn into a misdemeanor that turns into a felony, and then we've lost this
Right.
person. Now I'm tough when you come into my court and you've hurt someone. But I told the story on a radio show here a few weeks ago. There was a young man who came in my court who went to Walmart and stole flowers and a Mother's Day card for his mom for Mother's Day, and he had about $200 in his pocket when he was arrested. And so he comes before me in court, and the police officer wrote in the report he had the money to pay for these things. And so I asked him, "Why'd you do it?" He said, "I wanted to see if I could get away with it."
Wow.
And he was, 19, 20. And I went through my same routine. What do you do? What do you know? And he was someone who said that he liked to drive. I think is what I have so many of these. But I think this is the one he liked to drive. And so he goes to CDL school, becomes a truck driver. Maybe a year or so ago, he comes to my office for a real estate closing. He was buying his first house.
Wow.
And so he came to the closing room. I didn't remember him from court. Didn't catch the name. And he said, "Do you remember me?" And I'm like, "I think so." I didn't want to say no.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "I think I do," whatever. And then he says, "Do you remember the young man that sold the flowers in the car from Walmart for his mom?"
Wow.
And I remembered that. And he's like, "That was me." And he said, "I specifically wanted to make sure that I closed here with you because you are the reason."
I'm getting chills. That's a workforce champion story.
But what if we did that before he was charged with a crime?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes. Look, I gotta give DSC some shout out right now. And that's what we do at DSC Training Academy now. Workforce has changed to where we're sitting with people and saying what you just said. What is it that you like to do? Because when people getting up every day and going to that job and doing stuff that they like to do, they're gonna be successful. Like you told this story, he liked to drive. He got a CDL. He's doing something he loved. Now he's bought his home. Now he's contributing to a great life.
Any more trouble.
Yes. And so when we and I'm gonna bring it back to the Mississippi Senate legislator because this, and the reason I'm bringing this back to it, because when we're talking about workforce training dollars and where we're putting it, and I love community college. I got a grandson now is going to school at Hines for HVAC, and he loves it. But I'm telling you, we got to look at where we're putting these workforce dollars in diversity of those workforce dollars and how we do it. And it can't be tunneled into one place.
That's right.
So when we're communicating with our legislators on the Senate and House side both, they have got to bring community into these conversations. We have got to bring diversity of conversations to this table, because everybody don't want to go to community college. Everybody doesn't want to go to four-year college. We champion education. If somebody wants to go to four-year college, they want to be a doctor, lawyer, whatever. But also there is diversity of workforce. We still need plumbers. Oh my God, I got to shout out to my plumber last night. I had a major plumbing issue. I thought, oh my goodness, it's nightfall. He's not going to show up. That I got this issue. He rolled up to my driveway. I didn't even know he was out there. Got his equipment out. Got started to work in the black dark. And I didn't hear from him till he knocked on the door. And he said, "Miss Jones, turn your water on in the bathroom." And so when we talk about workforce, also we got to look at how do we as a society think about jobs. Plumbers are essential.
And there's a shortage.
Oh my God, it's a shortage. And it's essential, just like a doctor. We need doctors for our health care. What will we do without plumbers? I tell you, I couldn't have survived this week without it's a holiday week. And good plumbers. And so we need plumbers, we need carpenters, we need all type, we need my goodness, even landscapers.
And then great some business owners right here in our community.
Yes. So that I had to get off my workforce thing there. But that's what reason also that this particular position, Attorney Mumford, is so important when we think about Mississippi Senate District 26 and how that particular role is not just about District 26. It's about having good leadership there that understands community and understand the issues and understand our economy as a whole and what's required there. So that's very important. Look, I've gotten off my tangent. See, I told you the hour is going to fly by. We're 10 minutes left, and I got got a few more questions I want to talk
Okay.
about, but you covered a lot of the issues that is related to this particular role around healthcare, around education, around economic development. We talked about community engagement and so many things, but I want to talk a little bit about your leadership style. How would you describe your leadership style, and how do you plan to foster collaboration in the Senate? People keep talking about supermajority, supermajority. I think you just got to be good at helping people understand what's good for the entire body.
That's right. I just got asked that question earlier this morning in an interview. And well, the question was, what are you going to do day one? Because you need to be able to work with others. I said, listen, day one, I'm going in there and make sure everyone knows who I am, that I know who they are, and that we find common ground, even in just who we are as people. That's where it starts with building relationships. As a leader, I have more of a collaborative, honest, hardworking style anyway. That's the kind of leader I am. So I'm going to approach this with that same tenacity. I'm coming in to work hard, but I do understand that I have to collaborate with others. And that starts with just building a relationship on a solid foundation. And that begins with transparency and honesty about what my goals are, and the understanding that we really do likely have the same goals to provide the best representation for the folks that send us down to the Capitol. I also think, though, for me, I will go with something to offer. Like, I already have plans to help us fight blight. Now, of course, it helps Senate District 26, but that helps any blighted area in the state. My plan for eradicating blight. I have plans to make the Uniform Partition Act stronger. The Uniform Partition Act is the act that helps you with your heirs' property. That's where we file those suits. It was enacted by our legislature in 2020. We didn't enact the entirety of it. There are some things we can do to make it even easier for families to leverage their lands. That's not a District 26 issue. That affects everybody. And so I'm going to go in with things that help everyone. We can talk about those things, and then we can find ways to collaborate on things that are unique to District 26. I'm not going in with I don't have anything to offer, I don't bring anything to the table. I've already been contemplating those things that provide a better quality of life for everyone, and so that there can be some collaboration amongst my colleagues there, so that we can all get some things done. And I think that's the approach that you have to have when you are going into which there's no longer a supermajority in the Senate, but we still need to work together if any of us are going to have anything to accomplish and take back to our districts. And so I go in with that approach. When I graduated from high school, which I went to a 99.9% African American high school, and then went to Mississippi State for college, where I was a super minority, especially in that at that time. And I was in the university honors program, which means I had smaller classes, and most times I was the only African American in my class. I didn't take the big government class that had 200 students in it. Mine had 20. My comp class had 15. And there was another African American student from time to time in the class with me. In the entire program, there were two of us at that time. And so I really did have to learn how to work well with others. And I found out is finding common ground takes you so far. And people are just people, And so having the mind to get to know people, for people to understand that I'm not coming into this in an adversarial way. I'm coming into this with a collaborative approach. I want to work with you, but I'm never going to sell out my vote for anything. I'm here to represent my people, but I'm bringing something to the table so that we can collaborate and work together. Those are the things that make an effective leader. And those are the things that I'll take with me to the Capitol.
Well, that's a good answer. Now, if you, I'm not even going to say if, when you are elected, what legacy do you hope to leave behind after your time in office?
Over the course of my life, I have always wanted to leave everything that I've touched better than I found it. And so that's what I'm taking to the Capitol. My legacy for District 26 is that I left it better than I found it, meaning that I worked hard. I've always been a really hard worker. And so I'm going to give it everything that I have. And I'm determined to get results and to say, even, after my first session, I can come back to my district and say, these are the things that I accomplished, or these are the things that I fought, to make sure that this district was better than I found it when I took office, and it will continue to get better every year that I'm there. And that's the legacy that I want to have. And that doesn't just relate to me as a state senator, but me as a community member, as a friend, as a church member. My mom has always taught us to give more than you take. And so I'm going to give it everything that I have to make sure that that legacy is that it's better than she found it.
Well, thank you so much, Miss Mumford, for having this conversation with me and your willingness to run and serve. What would you? I mean, you've been you. This is not your first rodeo at even just being part of a elected or appointed office. But what would you say to other women that are going to be running for public service? What is something you feel like you would share with them that they need to know?
I would first say, surround yourself with a good team. Really approach it as what you can give in that situation and not what you take away from it. And then know your community members, know the area that you want to represent. And if you're thinking about running for anything at any time, get involved right now. Don't wait until you need to ask for a vote to introduce yourself to your neighbors or your friends. Be a truly active part in your community right now before you ever go and qualify to run for office. I will say that knocking on doors when I started in May, it was so much easier because people were coming to the door. Kamesha, what are you doing here? You didn't have to come and ask me. You should know that I'm going to vote for you. That did me such a world of good. I knocked on the door of a past client who I saved her family's land, and it's a long story. But I knocked on her door, and she came to the door, and she said, "Do not ask me for a vote. Go put the biggest sign you have in my yard, and I'm telling everybody in this neighborhood that you are our senator." I represented this woman 8 years ago. So it had been that much time that had passed since I helped her, but she never forgot it.
That's the value of impacting lives. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just, when she came to me, she had no money to pay, and her answer was due like the next day. And I just immediately did what needed to be done to protect her and protect her land for her grandchildren. And not knowing that I was going to be coming back to her 8 years later to ask for her vote. And to have her say to me, "You better not ask me." You don't have to ask.
And people remember what you do for them more than what you say to them.
That's right.
And so I think that's relevant, wherever we are. This is Thanksgiving week. Not that we should use this week to be thankful, because I think one of the things that we got to continue to do is reflect on our lives. And sometimes we as women don't have time to do that. So what are some of the things that you're grateful for this Thanksgiving that maybe wasn't something that appeared to be last year?
Every year or every day I'm thankful for salvation. But this year, more than ever, I'm thankful for this community. I mean, just to see and know for certain the number of people who have shown so much love and support for me when they didn't necessarily have to, when they don't have anything to gain from it, but to the outpouring of love and support for me and my family during this time, it's overwhelming because it's not something that I really expected. I don't feel entitled to this position, but to see the work that I've done over this last 18 years come back to me in this way with the support and the love that I received from this community. It really helps me to understand that community work is so important, and that it's important to do it before you expect something from your community. Of course, I'm always thankful for my family, for my parents, my grandparents. My grandmother had 3 strokes earlier this year, but she is still battling. Our Thanksgiving is going to look a little bit different tomorrow. The food's not going to be as good. This will be the first, she's 83. This is the first Thanksgiving where she will not have made everything that we have tomorrow. But to have her still here with us is truly a blessing. My grandfather, I told you before, he's 87. But to spend the day with them tomorrow, I'm so grateful for that. How many 43-year-olds have 2 grandparents? And so I'm thankful for them and my entire family, my husband, my children, my parents, my siblings. I'm just thankful for people, and for love. Because this running for office is the hardest thing that I have ever done.
Look, I have never run, but I say it all the time that it is no joke. Not only you have to have character that protects you from all the negativity, the challenges that you have out there, the disagreements, and that's politics, and that's community, and that's with diversity. But you got to be prepared to really stand strong, and first know that there's a higher purpose to this
That's
work.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
right. And that's the other thing. I mean, I have people that are supporting me that hate each other. You know,
Mm.
they don't agree on very much.
Right.
The fact that they can agree on me,
Hmm.
it lets me know that I'm doing the right thing.
I love that. The fact that they can agree upon you.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, look, we are right at the top of our hour, and this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you again
Yeah.
so much, Attorney Mumford. I want to say also the Women for Progress PAC proudly endorses this candidate for the runoff for District 26. The runoff election is December 2nd. We need everybody who showed up the first time around to come back again. And then also, we need all of those you who didn't make it to the poll, you were 5 minutes away, you couldn't get into the door, whatever it was, you forgot. And sometimes that's happened, so don't beat yourself up about it. But if you didn't get to vote, we want you to come out and do that. We want every eligible voter back to the polls. I want to remind you that your vote does count.
Mhm.
It counts in every single election. Don't get caught up into this thing when we look at what's going on a national level and we think that we can't make a change. Your vote makes a change. Your vote trumps dollars. Your vote trumps everything out there, because when you get into that booth and you mark and give your voice, nobody can change it. Nobody can tell you, show who you voted for, who you didn't vote for. That is a personal call to action that we want to have from all our community. So we want you to be back December 2nd, get back to the polls and vote in District 26. We have a coroner race that's also on the ballot that we want you to champion also. But also we want you to continue to engage. This is a Thanksgiving holiday. And I just want to say to everybody, let's help each other win. And sometimes that's not about money. That's about, hey, when you're at the grocery store and look, you fall into Kroger and they got some cakes on sale. Instead of there being $6 over three, pick up two cakes and give one to your neighbor.
Mm.
Okay, help each other win. Pick up a extra can of cranberry sauce, because somebody, your neighbor, is going to be knocking on your door. Do you have any cranberry sauce? And you got it covered. So there are so many ways that we can begin to think through how we can help each other in. Let's wake up every day and say, okay, here's my agenda. These are things on my calendar. How can my footprint help somebody else win? And we can do that in such a big way. It doesn't matter what your economic situation is. We all can do that and do that effectively. Thanks so much again,
Yeah.
Kamesha. This has been the Working One Report. Thank you all so much. I'm telling you, I just love, love, love you all to continue to allow us to be able to do this in Women for Progress Radio Network. I do want to remind you, and it's been streaming at the bottom of our podcast, Kwanzaa is coming up December 26th. December 26th, we're partnering again with two Mississippi museums. It's going to be December 26th. The doors open at 5:30. It's free and open to the public. We're so excited to have Matt Drama from Jackson State University going to be our special guest this year. But I tell you, it is the most amazing annual event of the year in the city of Jackson. We want you to. I think it's the only event that I know about that you can bring everybody. If grandmother's in a wheelchair, roll her into the museum. If you got babies, if your neighbors are in town, you say, well, what are we going to do? We just got to eat all this Christmas holiday and we've had a good time on Christmas Day. What are we going to do the day after? Everybody's wondering what they're going to do the day after. Come to Kwanzaa and be lifted. Be lifted and remind about your heritage, about what the power that you have within yourself and your families to do every single thing God wants you to do, to be everything that God says that you are. That's what happens at Kwanzaa. Today, thanks so much for Joanne Bell for being on WJTV 9 this morning. She talked about Kwanzaa and shared it. And that's the one thing she was asked is, why should people come to Kwanzaa? You come to Kwanzaa to be reminded of what's possible and who you are. And so that's what we want you to do on December 26th at two Mississippi museums. Doors open at 5:30. We're going to have food. Come for some good food. Now, we may not have your typical stuff because on the Christmas Day, you already done had dressing. You already done had the turkey, but we're going to have something different for you to eat, and it's going to be good. So come and get our food, be entertained, be uplifted and inspired, and you're going to be educated. We're going to celebrate leaders across our community, those who have passed and those who are still here that are uplifting communities through their organizations, through the work that they do. I'm telling you, it is a powerful time. And so we want you to come and participate. Again, what did I say? It's free and open to the public. It's free and open to the public. So we want you to come. Thank you again for tuning in to Women for Progress. Go to our website at womenforprogress.net, our Facebook page. There's always a list of all the stuff that's going on, lunch and learn. There's a fireside chat coming up that's going to be amazing on December 9th. We'll be at the Smith Robinson Museum. I'm not going to go on because I see my executive producer already probably giving me the cut because I'm past 1 o'clock. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Working Woman Report. We'll see you next Wednesday at the same time and have a good, safe holiday. Thank you.